We are on chapter 18, the book of Joshua. Up until this point, we've seen the division of the lands amongst the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Joseph. We've also seen that on the other side of the Jordan, 2.5 tribes have received their inheritance. Reuven, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh on one side of the Jordan, the other half of Manasseh on the other side of the Jordan. Levi, as we recall, has no portion in the land of Eretz Yisrael. They have to do the service of the Lord. And so we were left with the 7 remaining tribes and their division in the boundaries and the borders of Eretz Yisrael. The text opens up here in chapter 18 and tells us, V'kalu kol adat b'nei Yisrael Shiloh. All the congregation has come up to Shiloh. Now, up until this point, the tabernacle, which entered into the land of Eretz Yisrael with the Jewish people, was situated in Gilgal. Gilgal is situated outside of Jericho. It was there for 14 years, the first 14 years that the Jewish people had entered into the land of Eretz Yisrael. 7 years of warfare, the 7 years of division, and still we haven't divided up the lands amongst all the tribes at this point. So it's still a little short on that notice over here. But now we come to Shiloh. Shiloh, the place of the tabernacle, which will be for the next 369 years, sure, that is a vast amount of time, will now become part permanent with stone walls and part temporary in continuing the tradition of the tabernacle with the tent-like aspect of that. So really, it's something new that is happening over here in Shiloh. It is becoming sort of like a permanent place for the tabernacle, for the dwelling place. And this is where all the service of the Lord will take place. The altar, the sacrifices, the Kohanim, the priests doing the sacrificial official work every single day. This is the place that this will take part. Now, it's interesting, the text tells us over here, and I'm reading in sentence number 3, you can follow along at home, which I'm sure you could open up your books and you are doing that. The text tells us over here that Yoshua is rebuking the Jewish people. Vayomer Yoshua el bnei Yisrael ad ana atem mitrapim lavo l'reshes haaretz. How long are you going to take until you finally come and take possession of the land? Now, what we've had over here is really basically it's just taking way too long, this whole aspect over here. The Jewish people entered into the land of Eretz Yisrael. Immediately they were supposed to come, conquer the land and divide it amongst them. So now we've already find ourselves 14 years after the fact. 14 years have already passed. Warfare, division, and still we have 7 tribes that have not received their inheritance yet. So Yeshua is rebuking them. And the truth be told, that really, when we say that the buck stops here, Yeshua, as the leader of the Jewish people at this particular point, really should put some of that guilt right back at himself, because you as the leader should have caused the effect that the Jewish people should have been settling and conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael. As we know that the job really wasn't done 100%. Many pockets of the Canaanite peoples were left, whether that was intentional for the Jewish people to have a cheap labor, we find even in our very day, or it was just too hard to go and conquer all of those peoples over there. But many pockets of the inhabitants of the 7 nations that lived in the land of Eretz Yisrael still remained amongst the Jewish people. Now, it's true that the Jewish people obviously had the upper hand because they're dividing the land and setting out the boundaries. True. But many of the 7 nations still remained amongst them, and they will, so to speak, come back later to bite us in a very, very bad spot, as we see in the next book, Shoftim, where not only at this point maybe they're second class citizens, if you want to say, and they know their spot, but later on, in years from now, they will take the initiative and actually enslave the Jewish people. That's what happens when you don't follow 100% what the Torah tells us. The Torah tells us very clearly in the book of Numbers, Lo techia kol neshama, don't let any of them live. As we recall, Yoshua, when he entered into the land of Eretz Yisrael, allowed them three choices what they wanted to do: if they wanted to make peace with the Jewish people, if they wanted to pick up and leave, or if they wanted to do warfare. So the ones who decided to do warfare against the Jewish people should have been removed, killed, and destroyed. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and so we find that those very people will eventually rise up and rebel against the Jewish rule in the land of Eretz Yisrael. Now we come to the tribe of Binyamin. The lot of the tribe of Binyamin is listed over here, its division, and the places that Binyamin settled. Interesting to note, the Gemara, which is quoted by Rashi over here in this chapter, tells us the schut, the merit that Binyamin had in order for the divine presence to actually dwell in his territory more than any of the other tribes. And that is what we find, and I'm quoting Rashi over here, that first of all, Shiloh, where now is the place of the tabernacle, the divine presence will dwell over there. After Shiloh is destroyed in the time of Eli HaKohen, the tabernacle is then moved to Nov and Giv'on. There also, the Talmud tells us that the divine presence settled there. And of course, finally, the final resting place for the tabernacle of the divine presence will be Yerushalayim, which is interesting because there the boundaries is divided very closely between Judah and Binyamin, and the divine presence, the Holy of Holies, is in the area of Binyamin. The Talmud goes on to tell us why was that? What did Binyamin have that the other tribes did not have, that the divine presence rested in his territory more than any of the other tribes? And the Talmud teaches us over here is that it gives actually two reasons why that should be. One is that Binyamin was born in Eretz Yisrael. Out of all the tribes, he was the only one who was actually born in Eretz Yisrael. So there's a special kedusha, there's a special holiness to that, because we know very clearly that the Holy Land is, as we say, holy. So it has extra kedusha. That's one reason. So being born in Eretz Yisrael gives that aspect of kedusha. The other one is that being that Binyamin wasn't around in the time when Esav came to visit, when the tribes were coming back in Jacob's time, when they were coming back from Lavan's house back to Eretz Yisrael. So Binyamin did not bow down to the evil one, to Esav, and because he had that merit of also not bowing down to Esav, so too the divine presence will dwell in his territory. That's a great aspect over there, just by the way, because we see the tremendous kedusha, the holiness. The Mishnah comes on to tells us that there are 10 levels of holiness that descended upon the world. All of those 10 levels are situated in Eretz Yisrael. So no matter how many texts and books and Talmud that you actually learn in Chutz La'aretz, you should know that the kedusha is not there. There's no holiness. You could try as you may do, but it will not help you, because the holiness, the kedusha that Hashem wants, is only found in Eretz Yisrael. Now we go through the chapter over here in chapter 18, and we list quite a number of places, I think, which are familiar to many of us. For instance, Katef Yericho, on the outskirts of Yericho, Bet El, which I'm sure is known to everybody, Atarot, Beit Chorin. I'm just listing a few of these places on the borderlines of Binyamin, Kiryat Yearim. All of these places that the Torah lists over here, the heartland of Eretz Yisrael. These are places that the Jewish people settled in the time of Yoshua ben Nun. This is the heartland of Eretz Yisrael. It's interesting that these are the places that are in dispute today, that we find a lot of the Arabs and Palestinians that live in these disputed areas as occupiers. So when you come back to the roots of it and you see what's real, the real McCoy of what's going on over here in Eretz Yisrael, these are the places. These are the places that really belong to the Jewish people. Okay. The chapter ends up over here by telling us about the boundaries of Binyamin, and of course how it ends in Yerushalayim. I'm reading from sentence number 28. V'tzela ha'elef hayevusi hi Yerushalayim. So this is Yerushalayim. As I mentioned earlier, Binyamin and Yehuda sort of split down Yerushalayim in the middle between the two. So ends chapter 18, a very important chapter in the fact that they're finally gathering all together in the final place, Shiloh, which will be the main distribution center for all the rest of the tribes who still haven't received their inheritance. That is taking place right now in chapter 18. Yoshua is trying to organize everybody for their lax behavior, for not getting the job done so well, and inheriting and conquering the land of Eretz Israel. We'll see more about that in the coming chapters. Stay with us.